Well, this morning I have an interview that I think is going to be very helpful. I had Charles Marshall on this Skype call. Charles serves at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Manchester, Maryland. But I particularly wanted to talk to him about the fact that he attended the Leadership Summit this summer. That's one of those venerated long-term continuing education events that they now do via video all around the country. And when Charles had a chance to attend that, I said, Charles, would you be willing to summarize just some of the learnings that you came away with? And he was willing, so I'm glad to have you on this morning, Charles.
Good to be here.
So tell me what was exciting, what you learned from the Leadership Summit this summer.
Well, a part of the benefit that I derived from the summit was being in the presence of a lot of people from a wide variety of denominational and spiritual backgrounds, and including clergy and lay folks and business folks. The Global Leadership Summit deals with leadership not only through the church lens, but also through the business lens and nonprofit. So it was exciting for me just to be around and to interact with just a wide range of people and have a chance to tell my story, to listen to some of their stories. And so just that aspect of the setting was one of the most valuable parts of the summit. But content-wise, I think one thing, it's kind of helpful that I'm doing this reflecting a few months down the road, because I have the advantage of knowing what has actually been sticking with me, what I have been drawing upon even a few months down the road. You know how often you go to a continuing education event and, within a day or two of your return, it's like, it's all gone. So, but there are some things that have stuck with me. And it's interesting that I think the one thing that has stuck with me the most is the one word, passion. And indeed, the first presenter was Bill Hybels, founder and senior pastor of Willow Creek Community Church in Chicago, who spoke about the four lenses of leadership. And the first one, so this is the very first thing I heard about, was about passion-filled leadership. So the first lens of leadership is passion. And leadership is all about passion. Leading from the heart, that fire in the belly, the thing that gets you up in the morning, the thing that gets you moving and keeps you moving. And people can tell the difference between a leader who is passionate about the work, passionate about the mission, and someone who is just kind of going through the motions, or someone who is just worn out. And so passion really connected with me, and about the importance of keeping your passion bucket filled. That was the image he used, was that you have, that each one of us has this bucket, and we need to keep our passion bucket filled. And because, of course, as we go about our task as leaders, that we gradually empty that bucket. And if we're not continually refilling it, pretty soon we're not going to have much passion left. The quality of our leadership is going to decline. The quality of our preaching is going to decline. And so we have to find what ways of keeping our passion bucket full. And for me, one of those ways is continuing education. It's being stimulated with new ideas, and both going to continuing education events, and of course also reading. Another way of keeping myself stimulated and challenged. That's where I get my passion. And I have also learned that passion is more holistic. It's not only about what you do, how you stimulate yourself mentally. But another thing I've been doing to keep my passion bucket filled is bumping up my physical exercise. I recently joined the local Family Y with my family. We recently moved here, and I have undertaken a regular regimen now of physical exercise in addition to the exercises I had already been doing at home, combination of resistance training and working on my abs and cardio 3 days a week. And just that added level of physical exercise really gives me more energy, more passion. I find that I'm able to sustain better, and also relationships. Deriving passion from friendships, from being with family, just always being aware of passion, being more attentive to my passion bucket.
That's an excellent image. I really thank you for that. That's going to stay with me for a while too. And even just you remind me that you don't do continuing education just to learn, but also to be inspired. That whole thing of leadership not always being taught but caught. It sounded like both in the people you interacted with and then even in that image of the passion bucket, it was something that you caught and then held on to. That's a great reminder. Thank you.
Right. And as a matter of fact, Bill's first piece of advice about how do I keep my passion bucket filled is to get around passionate people. And that was one thing that I benefited from again at the conference was there were a lot of passionate people in that room, a lot of people who were very excited about their work. And as we were able to share with each other about our work, what we're excited about, what we care deeply about, we were filling each other's passion buckets. And so that was learning number one, was about passion and being a passionate leader, a passionate pastor. And the next thing that really was a major theme that wove itself through nearly all of the presentations, and there were quite a few of them at this event, was I would call people first. That leadership is all about relationship, and it's not just about getting the job done. In other words, not just task oriented, but relationship oriented. The second speaker was Alan Mulally, who was the president and CEO of the Ford Motor Company, who was called in to take over at a time when the Ford Motor Company was in some troubled times and really helped to transform that corporation. Until, of course, the Ford Motor Company was the only motor company that did not need a bailout back in the days of our economic crash. And he began with a very clear vision of how he was going to operate as CEO, and his number one principle was people first. And people meaning both the employees, every member of the Ford Motor Company team, from the highest VPs, down to the janitorial staff. Everyone was important. Everyone was included, and everyone was kept up to date on what was happening. Everyone was buying into the vision for the company, and everyone felt that they were an integral part of what was happening there. So just the importance of putting people and relationships first, and that's another thing that I've been focusing on as I've been starting in my first several months here at Emmanuel, is trying to keep that first, building relationships in the congregation and also in the community. And also related to that, that same theme of people and relationships coming first, was a learning from John Maxwell. Many people have heard of John Maxwell. He's a kind of a leader in the whole leadership movement. He has taught and written about leadership very extensively. And he used a phrase that has also stuck with me. He calls it adding value to people, mentioning how Jesus valued people in his ministry. And he challenged all of us to put, adding value to people at the very center of our lives, to, as he would say, every morning he gets up, he looks at his appointments, he looks and sees who he is going to be interacting with that day. And before he leaves for work, he already has in his mind something that he's going to do with each of those people that he knows he's going to be interacting with that's going to add value to their lives. And then he also adds, just in more casual interactions, stopping at Starbucks for coffee or whatever, how do I add value to the barista who's serving me? And so his big lens is that adding value. Think of ways to add value to the lives of those around you. And that for me has also been a big challenge to just think about it. And I love that concept of adding value to people.
It's another great concept. There was a whole business piece, I think, of value added, just in terms of how a business works. But I think thinking about that in terms of people, that's a phrase that I picked up a while ago. And as I was listening to you, I went, oh, was that John Maxwell? Or maybe he got it from somebody else. But it's a great phrase, whoever came up with it, of adding value to others. That's good stuff. So is that a corollary to number 2, or is that number 3?
No, that goes along. As I said, it was a theme that kind of ran through.
Excellent. Okay.
And I don't know that it was intentional. In fact, I imagine it wasn't. But it was
maybe just how God was speaking to you.
Yeah, or how God was speaking to me. I remember, for example, also another one of the people who spoke, actually being interviewed by Bill Hybels, was Melinda Gates of the Gates Foundation, obviously. And she said that the principle by which she operates and by which the Gates Foundation operates is all lives have equal value. And that was also something that struck me. All lives have equal value. And that, every person in the world, has the right to have the chance to live a life of value, to live a significant life. And that's the guiding principle that's behind the Gates Foundation and all the work that they are doing around the world to try to lift up those who are on the bottom. And she described herself as an impatient optimist, and that's another phrase that kind of stuck with me. She always looks for the good, but she's also kind of impatient with the status quo. So it's kind of an interesting combination, an impatient optimist.
Yeah, I like that. That's another good phrase.
And she says, and she also speaks about whenever she's entering into a new community, working with a new group of people, she says, always go in as a learner. Always go in as a learner. Not as the expert who's going to hand out the information, not as the rich and powerful person who is going to help you out, but go in as a learner. And that's something that I certainly try to do in my own work as pastor and just in general as a human being, to try to always take that learning stance. And something that's also a place that I'd like to help to bring my congregation as well. That congregations function best when we're working as learning communities. Listening to, learning from the community, from those around us, finding ways that we can work together to add value to our community. So the whole idea of the learning organization and always go in as a learner. So those are a few of the things that stick in my mind from the event after a few months have passed since attending it. That certainly extremely valuable experience. And this was the first Global Leadership Summit I have ever attended. And so I went in not too sure what to expect, but my expectations were blown out of the water. It was a very, very powerful event. like drinking from a fire hose. There was just a whole lot coming at me all at once. But in terms of filling the passion bucket and getting me charged up and keeping me charged up even months down the road, certainly certainly well worth my investment of time and somebody else's investment of money. It
Well,
was great.
yeah, that was on the synod, so we were glad to do that, and hopefully others will take advantage of that and fill up their passion bucket perhaps next year because they were scattered all over Maryland and Delaware.
Right.
And Charles, I definitely wanted to thank you for the time to come and just share a little bit about the experience and in turn, challenge us in our passion buckets as well. That's been very helpful.
My pleasure.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks again, and maybe we'll have you go on again when the next time you go to a continuing education. We want to hear about the next good stuff that you bring.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.